Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's broadcast on Hinduism. My name is Nishit Kotak. I'm here with the team from Hindu Academy. Welcome to today's broadcast. And if you are new to this broadcast, you may be watching us on YouTube or you may be watching us on Facebook on the Hindu Academy channels. Please do remember to like, share, and subscribe so that you can be updated of the next videos that we will be uploading. So what I'd like you to do is just join me. We will be looking at one video today. The focus video is going to be on how a poor servant boy, Latu, became a great sage. And then we'll have a little discussion around it. And in the meanwhile, if you want to ask your questions to the team, please do so in the comments area, and I will be passing them on to the team very shortly. So without further ado, let's get into the video for today.
He lived with his master throughout his life. And there are stories that I'm going to tell when I talk about Swami Vivekananda in a minute. I'll tell you how this Vivekananda relates to Latu. Here is this prakhara, intellectual, and here is this rustic. And you see how they interact with each other. I'm going to talk to you in the later stage of this particular story. But let me talk about Latu a little bit more. You see, he was a very unique character, out of this world. He could not conform to any regulation. Once the master said, "How can you go to sleep at night? You should be meditating." That was enough for him. From that day on, he would meditate all night. And later on, even when they started the first, the monastery, and all the brother disciples was in the middle of the night, they'll, put the oil lamp out and go to sleep. Everybody go to sleep, 9 p.m., switch off snuff out the oil lamps. And then they could hear click, click, click in the middle of the night. They were living in very poor condition. They thought some rats or mice are now beginning to play. It happened every night. So one of the brothers decided there's some mischief is going on here. So next day, I'm not going to sleep, I'm going to wait. As soon as that click, click start in the middle of night, he struck a match. And he saw Latu quietly sitting up, doing his meditation, beads, turning his beads. That's why the click, click was coming from. He said, "Latu, do you want to surpass all of us? When we sleep, you want to continue, but this is not you stay with us, don't go ahead of us." And this is the kind of fun and games. Also, you see, when I tell you some of the stories of Latu, it will touch you. Let me tell you why. When Ramakrishna passed away, he served him to the last day. Now, Latu is not going to conform. He's going to lead a life on his own. He can't even stay in the monastery because he can't conform to anything. So how does he spend his life? When you listen to this is the life of a real, if you like, a realized personality. Latu would sit on the bank of the river Ganga and meditate, spend his days and nights meditating. How would he feed himself? What were his material possessions? Look, if this doesn't bring tears to your eyes, nothing else will. He had one towel, and once in a while somebody would give him a little bit of 1 or 2 paisa with which he would buy chickpeas, dry chickpeas. He would put those chickpeas in the towel, go to the bank of the Ganga, find a rock, and put this towel with the chickpeas under the rock and hold it down. And the river would flow over it, and Latu would sit on the bank of the river and go into deep meditation. When the meditation was over, and hopefully the tide is gone, he would go looking for his towel, pull it out, the chickpeas will become wet and they can be eaten. He would eat it happily. Now you see, we may think, this is poor Latu. Look, we are the poor ones. This guy was in full flow. Chickpeas, what chickpeas? He was eating nectar. For him there was no difference. Establishing God realization, these things are very trivial. He had no difficulty with any of that. He wasn't suffering. We suffer, we go, "Oh dear." He was in full flow. We never know what he was tasting. Not chickpeas, much more sweeter. And so I saw the funny story about Latu that makes us smile and laugh and do whatever we like. At night, when sometimes there was a rainy season, where can you find shelter, this Latu? Now in those days there will be kind of lot of compartments, cargo compartments of railway carriages would be in the siding somewhere. So you'll find some railway carriage for transporting cargo with open door. He would say, "Okay, there's some straw there, I can sleep in there." So he would quietly, go into the railway carriage with cargo things and just lie there and go to sleep. And then this Latu told he said, one day I was sleeping and suddenly, I got up with jolt. They'd actually linked up that particular carriage and taken it to another village, 50 miles away. He got up in another town. Now he doesn't have money. You see, he has no money. Toil is his material wealth. So he said, now how do I get back? The only way I can get back is walk back 50 miles. He said, from that day onward, I decided not to sleep in railway carriage. Too risky. Don't know where you wake up. You see, when you look at the story of this Latu, you see a transformation to the highest level of an ordinary person turning into a great sage. Later in his life, in the final days in his life, he spent his time in Kashi, Banaras. Here, a lot of people will flock to him and ask him very subtle questions, spiritual questions about spirituality. I told you, remember what Sri Ramakrishna had said? Pure Vedas will flow out of his mouth. When he opens his mouth, purest of Vedas will flow out. This is what used to happen. Just let me give you one example of the depth of this personality. Somebody said, Maharaj, this life is very burdensome. Look, we all feel it. We may not acknowledge it, but we all feel it. Life is burdensome. So many things, unresolved issues coming up, cropping up all the time. It's very burdensome. How can we make it light? And look at the answer from this rustic. He said, my boy, suppose you dive in the river Ganga. Yeah? You dive deep in the river Ganga. Do you feel the weight of the water? You see, when you are, Archimedes knows, you don't feel any weight. In fact, you have to force yourself to go down. You're not feeling the weight of the water. In fact, you're being pushed up. You have to be kind of push yourself down to stay in the water. There's no weight. You don't feel the weight. In fact, you're weightless. So he's using this example. He said, when you dive in the Ganga, do you feel the weight of the water of the Ganga on top of your head? In the same way, when you are floating in the ocean of Satchidanand, this idea that I am the spirit, what weight? The world appears a mention of mirth, merriment. Everywhere I look, there is nothing but excitement, spiritual excitement. I live in bliss. What burden, my boy, what burden? When you recognize that you are swimming in the ocean of Satchidanand, your essential nature, the spirit, the world doesn't appear like a burden. It appears like the most pleasurable, most sweetest thing that you can ever experience. Nothing. So this poor guy, whether he's eating chickpeas which are hard or soft, makes no difference. It is all Satchidanand for him. Full bliss. So we look at this classification, good, bad, harsh. For him, it's all sweet. This is what is meant by Brahman, Brahmagnan. See this young boy, a rustic, established in the highest, if you like, spiritual experience. This is just one of the 16 disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. I can tell you, all of them were God realized. They were very exciting. All were as different as you can imagine. Each one is different and individual.
And there you have it. What an amazing personality and what a way of looking at life indeed. So I'd like to hand over to my team. We've got Manish Bhai, Sita Ben, we've got Vijay Bhai. And Manish Bhai, over to you to carry on with the start of the session for today.
Thank you, Nisit Bhai. So here we see a wonderful story of Latu Maharaj, Swami Adbhutanand. Today is his 101st anniversary of Mahasamadhi. He passed away 101 years ago. So that's why we selected this video. And it's such a wonderful personality. He was a poor servant boy, and look what Ramakrishna did to him. Sita Ben, could you say a bit more on Latu Maharaj, please?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was one of the first disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, and in a similar sort of way to Ramakrishna himself, he wasn't sort of academic by any means at all. And I think when he first came to Sri Ramakrishna, obviously he had this wonderful spiritual experience. I think Sri Ramakrishna just touched him, and he was just inspired. He went into this spiritual experience immediately, and Ramakrishna knew straight away that there was something very special about Latu Maharaj. And because Ramakrishna almost adopted him like his own son, and he was his greatest help. He was like his great help, especially during the difficult times when Sri Ramakrishna wasn't well and all of that. So he really saw him as his son, and he thought, I have to look after my son. And he tried to teach him some of the letters of the alphabet, and it didn't really work out. But it just shows that he really sort of treated him like his son. And ultimately, literacy and all of that is completely irrelevant when it comes to the height of spiritual experience. And that's what they both were having. So we're very lucky to read about his life and his teachings, really. Vijay Bhai?
Yeah, a very inspirational story. I mean, it's amazing. I think some of the things you can learn from this story of Latu Maharaj is one is that the idea of desire. See, we always try and fight desire all the time. But I think the way to look at it is the way Latu Maharaj did. Everything is sweet. Really chickpeas to even the tiniest thing is sweet. So when you look at things like that, actually the desire kind of drops off. Desire means to discriminate, get things for yourself. So I mean, you can imagine somebody finding joy in just eating some little chickpeas, just with soaked in water. And that's very. I think also I remember the stories that he was one of the prime disciples that actually spent a lot of time to do kind of service seva of Ramakrishna Paramahansa when he was ill, and he kind of never left his side, and that's really special as well. I mean, so you learn so many things: how to serve people, also how his life was. I mean, he said that somebody can just fall asleep on the train. And I mean, everything was to him was just, I mean, amazing. Can you imagine somebody who is, I would say, very poor in the sense with materialistic, really poor, but he has immensely happy and immense joy and still like a master. It's the same like any other, as Sita mentioned, all the disciples of Ramakrishna Paramahansa like that. Yeah, they had no material possession, yet they live like the master. Everything was kind of, in a way, the link to everything. And I think that's one thing you learn from Ramakrishna Paramahansa and all the disciples. It's absolutely amazing. Very inspirational. Yeah.
Wonderful answer, Vijay Bhai, Sitaben. So, we saw in the video Swami Adbhutanand Latu Maharaj talking about how to make life lighter. Life is burdensome and we feel it. And in India, the situation is really, really bad now with coronavirus peaking, and we've got about 300,000 cases per day happening, and the situation is very, very hard. Let's put it that way. So how do we, what can we learn from Sri Ramakrishna and his disciples? How can we live in such times? Vijay Bhai?
It's very tough because, I mean, I think a lot of them have also lost their loved ones, and yeah, it's really spreading in India at the moment. I think one thing to keep in mind is that even spreading is it's not really good at all. But I think from what I hear, still percentage-wise, because India is a vast country, it's not as bad as said like what we had here, but it's still very important we keep track. But I think the main thing we learn from, I guess, how to handle this, and you can look at all the saints of India, is to first remain calm. Yeah, don't get agitated. I think people are worried about losing things, which can happen. The main thing is remain calm and also follow instructions, basic instructions. Yes, I think sometimes people get too lax, so it's important to follow instruction as well. But main thing to learn from lives of, say, Ramakrishna Paramahansa, that no matter what the situation, they always lived, as I say, a life of happiness and joy. Try and make the best you can, despite the tough situation. Yeah, it's tricky. It's not easy. So yeah, Sita Ben.
Yeah, it's really difficult to know what to say in such a situation, because obviously so many people are suffering, not only the people who've got the virus, but their families and friends and everyone around them. So it's a very, very difficult situation, but we just have to try and make sure that we keep ourselves centered and focused and have a spiritual sort of angle to everything that we do. Pleasure and pain are sort of come come into this world, we come into this world and we have to sort of go through this, but we have to remember that ultimately, you know, spirituality and, you know, looking at everybody around you as being divine is, you know, very, very important, to the point where you can do whatever you can to support those around you who are struggling, families who are struggling with the virus. Just do whatever we can, because service to humanity is, you know, this is the chance that we can actually serve humanity. So let's do the best that we can. And it's a difficult time, but we'll come out of it stronger, hopefully.
Wonderful answer there, Sita and Vijay Bhai. You know, staying with the story of Latu Maharaj, what we see is these people living in right abject poverty, very poor conditions, and try to focus on spirituality. And even Jesus Christ said something to that effect, that the blessed are the poor who will, you know, find Father in heaven. And it's difficult is it difficult? Does wealth come in our way of spirituality? Sita Ben?
Yes, so I think the middle path is probably the best. So the Buddhist sort of saying the middle path is probably the best, because obviously if you're extremely poor, how can you then focus your mind on spirituality and your children are starving, they don't have enough for their next meal? How can you then focus on spirituality? So first you need to sort of sort out your sort of material well-being before you can focus on spirituality. But then, having said that, people sort of get swept away by the idea of money and power. And, you know, once you're on that trajectory of earning money, then it's very easy to say, I want to earn more, I want to earn more. And then when you get to the point of, you know, amassing a lot of wealth, sometimes you can see it as a burden, because what do you do with so much wealth? I mean, there's a limit to how much you can personally use and your family and friends can use. Then you start sort of worrying about where you're going to invest your money and all of that. And then you still sort of fall back into materialistic living. Whereas if you're sort of in the middle, you're not too poor and you're not too wealthy, you've got this sort of, you know, you can focus on more spiritual objectives and you don't lose track of, you know, your spiritual inheritance, essentially. So you can still continue to lead a spiritual life in the best way that you can. And whenever you do sort of come across vast amounts of wealth, if you're lucky enough to, if you've worked hard enough, make sure you remember that that wealth is not yours to keep. You're only the steward of that wealth. You're only the sort of caretaker of that wealth, and it's your responsibility to then distribute it for the well-being of the wider community, the international community. So make sure we don't see it as just mine. It's your responsibility to pass it on to others and benefit the wider community. Vijay Bhai?
No, I think Sita, you've got it very beautifully. Just to add, I think, you know, we live in a world where the economy is driven by how people consume things. So the world out there is trying to get you to buy and become more materialistic, because that's, if you look, no matter where you look, in every advertisement or any shop, you're always being urged to buy things. And also your mindset is being trained to buy the latest, I don't know, iPhone, the latest gadget, laptop. And that's the thing. How do you fight this? So in effect, as Sita said, if you have the basics and you got what you need for just the basics for living and happy living. I mean, take Latu Maharaj as a very good example. Okay, he had all nothing. We are lucky that at least we can have some basic stuff. And say, okay, now this is enough. And try and train your mind to not go after all these things. It's very difficult. I mean, I know. I mean, I've got a laptop, and now I wish I had a laptop with 8 GB or whatever. And that's how the world kind of, it drives you. That's the irony. The economy does not run. If you're all spiritual, I think the economy will have a very strong, tough time to run properly. Anyhow, the main thing is that materialism can actually, and the urge to buy things can really not help you in spirituality. But of course, the other side is living in abject poverty. And that's why I think the basic stuff every human should have, I think, like, water, a basic, you just cook, a little house. These are basic things that every human should try and aspire. After that, then I think we should all try to focus on more spirituality. Yeah.
Wonderful answer there, Vijay Bhai, Sita Ben. We take a first question from chats. It's Sajila K. She's asking, what do the Hindu scriptures say about theory of evolution? Is there any connection between the Dasavatar and evolution, Vijay Bhai?
Okay, I think sometime I can Sita cover the Dasavatar, but just to focus on the idea of evolution. Look, for Hindus, we have no problem with theory of evolution. And the reason for that, because in Hinduism, all life has soul. Unlike in the Abrahamic faiths, where only the humans have a soul, in the Indic faith, all life, from the smallest bacteria to the greatest manifestation, so even if it's us, we have a soul. So we have no problem in linking all life as kind of it has a spiritual angle to it. But it just happens that humans are the kind of we see that we have the clearest manifestation of the divine in that sense. But yes, that's how that is very closely linked to evolution. It's true. But having said that, also remember, even in Hinduism, even in the idea of humanity, in the olden times, humans are much, much more attached to the animals they had at home for sustenance, nourishment. So it's quite natural that we have, at least in Hinduism, even more attraction to animals. And don't forget, in Hinduism, we revere animals. We do kind of a puja to the gentle cow. So it's part and parcel of our life. So it's amazing. We already built into this system. So we have no problem. But yes, Dashavatara starting from Matsya, Kurma is the amphibian, so first from the sea. And we know the life started at sea, that's true. And it came on land, amphibian, which is the Kurma avatar. Then we have Varaha, the boar. And then of course you have the Narsi avatar, half man, half lion. When his man is just evolving. Then you have the Parshuram, sorry, Vaman avatar, the short. Ironically, it's true. A lot of the old uh, evidence we've archived, all the old men, Australopithecus, Homo all very really short. Funny enough, yes. It just kind of fits. Yes, I'm not sure there's actually an angle to it, but it just so happens it fits. And then you have Narsi avatar. So Narsi first, you have lion and man, and then you have Vaman avatar. Yes. So first coming towards man for the first time, animal coming out of the man kingdom, human kingdom, and then you have Vaman, the short, and then of course it goes on. So yes, it's a very nice thing. It fits kind of very well. I'm not sure the link with evolution, but yes, it does fit. But having said that, I think most Indic faiths we don't have a problem with evolution. Sita Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've covered it all really, basically. So we do sort of believe in the idea of evolution. We don't sort of, come to loggerheads with science regarding that at all. So in that sense, we're quite lucky that we're quite in alignment with science rather than sort of in contradiction to science, especially in this matter. And I guess throughout sort of history, we've got these wonderful stories of the avatars, which reflect that Hindu thinking as well, that, life sort of started off in the water and then it moved to land. And then we sort of transitioned from, small humans to bigger humans and to where we are now. So, we're very lucky that our sort of thinking fits very well with science.
Wonderful answer there, Vijay Vai and Sita Ben. There you go. We got a link with the Saltar and our evolution. How nice to see. On this point, bring in a Facebook question from Thomas Klein. He said, I want to be a Hindu. What must I do? Should I read Bhagavad Gita? How should he proceed? Sita Ben?
I mean, Hinduism is one of those religions where we don't have a set prescription of, oh, you must do this and you must do this, and then you become a Hindu. We actually say, don't necessarily even label yourself as a Hindu. You don't have to do that at all. Just take what you love from Hindu teachings and make them your own. So, we've got such wonderful ideas in Hindu philosophy, like the ideas of spiritual humanism, where we see, humanity as a manifestation of spirit. If you love that idea, take that and make it your own. You have this idea of religious pluralism. There's many different ways of making spiritual progress. So it actually goes against the grain of Hinduism to say, no, you must then become a Hindu. If you like the idea, take it and make it your own. And you don't necessarily need to label yourself as a Hindu at all. And we're very good in the sense that, we've never gone out and converted people of other religions. We've been very sort of open about the different sort of spiritual pathways that many people throughout humanity have taken and are taking. And please continue on that trajectory. And if there's things you like within Hinduism, then please adopt them and make them your own. Vijay Bhai?
Yeah, I think Sita, you've got it very nicely. Yeah, I think one thing he knew, the idea of the Hinduism, basically a Sanatana Dharma, is a very universal term. It just so happens that because other faiths have this idea of conversion, it's somehow seen as required in Hinduism. It's not, as Sita mentioned. We don't need to do that. I mean, look, if you believe in the ideas of universal spirituality and if Hindu has appealed to you, then please adopt them. And if you want to read the Gita, Gita is a brilliant book. I mean, I love that book. It's so diverse and broad. Almost every idea of Hinduism can be seen in there. So if you want to read it, please read it. but you don't have to worry about getting kind of converted to Hinduism. I know that there are some movements because some funny enough, some people from the Arab really insist. So I believe the Arya Samaj in India do something called a purification ceremony, Shuddhi ceremony, or some, I think even I believe the ISKCON movement do that. But you don't have to do that, yeah. You just have to say, look, I accept Hindu ideas of, as Sita mentioned, I won't cover them, the idea of spiritual humanism, pluralism, then that's it. I mean, you are a part of the universal family. And yeah, just progress from there, really.
Wonderful answer there, Vijay Bhai Sitaben. So just to let viewer know, we do have a Jai Bhai's video on how to become a Hindu. And in a comment, one person said, if you watch enough videos on our Hindu Academy channel, you will become a Hindu. And I would tend to agree with them, because if you read or learn more about it, then you get the idea and then you can be more practicing Hindu. So please do subscribe to our channels, have a look at our videos. We normally putting 2 videos every day and always new material coming up. So do join us, like us, comment, and share with others so to help us grow as well. And we just touched issue of conversion. And what we're hearing from India reports is that some missionaries are targeting this Corona period and they're converting at mass scale. What do we have to say about that, Vijay Bhai?
I think as Sita covered earlier, I mean, we really have to strengthen our own beliefs. If you're not aware of our own beliefs, the people take advantage of us. And I think the other thing is they actually really feed on poverty in India. The very poor people are given things and they say, oh yeah, okay, and that's what really drives. I think one main thing is education and have enough knowledge of your own religions, kind of build our own kind of, armor so nobody can attack you. And that's very important. I mean, we know that many missionary groups, not all, but many have a major target ambition to get India into Christianity. And of course, the struggle because India is a vast civilization and they've got a vast history behind it. So it's not that easy, but they are going all out. I mean, I have faced in my own village as well, somebody coming to me and trying to say, and of course, after 5 minutes, he realized it won't work, so he went away. But the thing is that they are everywhere. I mean, don't forget, this is something that they've been taught, yes? And we can't even blame them because they've been, I would say, in my view, brainwashed. They may say, okay, they're saving us, but they don't even think of that. The thing is that you should do that. I mean, when I challenged this, even when I was in India, I challenged some Christians I met, and they said, how can you deny us the fundamental right to share our faith? And I said, what I took, we don't want you to share your faith with us. But they don't understand that for some reason, yeah? So it's a very big problem. But as I said, a couple of things. Make sure all Hindus have the basic requirements, which is happening now. I think the current government has built houses, giving them free gas, and now getting water into the homes. These basics are first required, and then a basic knowledge of Hinduism. And it's a pity in India that the schools don't teach their own history. That's really sad, and I think that's being used in a way to kind of to the advantage of some of these very aggressive missionary religions. Sita Ben?
Yeah, there's not much more I can add, really. As long as people sort of have that sort of structured understanding of their religion and why we do certain things, then we kind of have the strength to stand up to people who are trying to sort of undermine our spiritual inheritance and our tradition. So in that sense, maybe it's our own fault that, we haven't built ourselves to be strong enough to then, fight the challenges that other religions are posing to us. So it's something that we need to work on as a country, I guess.
Wonderful answer, Sita and Vijay. We take a question from Sudhakar Reddy. He's saying every Hindu agrees that Hinduism is not a religion. And as Swami Vivekananda says, Hinduism is a way of life. Then why we come out declaring Hinduism as a religion in all the testimony documents? Sita Ben?
So I think even the term religion is sort of realigning yourself with God. That's the term, and it's a very sort of Western sort of idea. This idea that you have to align yourself with God, whereas within Hinduism we don't even have in sort of deep Hindu philosophy and the origins of Hinduism. There was no God to align ourselves to. There was just spirit. And spirit manifesting as the universe. So it was literally not just aligning ourselves with God, it was sort of recognizing who you actually are and recognizing that the universe is a manifestation of spirit. So I think it's just because, you know, we're living in sort of Western countries and all of that, we sort of say, okay, we are a Hindu, we are a religion called Hinduism. Even the term Hinduism is not even sort of relevant to what Hindu philosophy is all about, essentially. You can look up many of Dad's videos on that if you don't know. So yeah, I think it's just the sort of Western thinking of religion is realigning ourselves with God, whereas within the sort of Indic traditions, it's just spirit is everywhere and everything, and we just have to recognize that in our day-to-day living and try and experience that for ourselves. Vijay bhai?
Yeah, I think Sita, you called it very nicely. I mean, yeah, the word Hindu as well was a label given to us by, I think, people who came to India from outside. India didn't label themselves as a Hindu religion. I think the problem comes that when you have exclusive religions around, then somehow they feel need to differentiate. So they have this group, this religion, realigning with God, as Sita said, different groups. I mean, in India, that's amazing. That's what I really love about Hinduism. There was never an attempt to create exclusive labels that I am this, so you are not. That's what happens when you say I'm a Christian. Then automatically everybody else is not. So you already divided people into groups in the name of the universal so-called one God. That doesn't add up, right? So Hinduism never had that. And as Sita said, the word Hinduism or even religion doesn't really fit. I mean, we said dharma. I mean, dharma is not a, you don't see it in English language. It's coming in slowly, the word, but the word is dharma. Yeah, that's a totally different angle to see how we see our beliefs or spiritual, kind of goals we have. We totally see it differently. But somehow we are stuck with this word religion because that's the best one we have, the closest we have in the Western kind of languages. But yes, you're right. If I had a choice, I would try and not use religion as a term, but it just happens they don't have a term like dharma, so we are kind of stuck with religion. Yeah, that's all I can say on this. Yeah.
Wonderful answer there, Sita and Vijay bhai. We take the next question from Kartikeya Sharma. He's saying, what if a Hindu eat beef like people in Kerala do? I think some Hindus in West sometimes eat beef as well, knowingly or unknowingly. Can they continue to worship God or not? And are they still Hindu? Vijay bhai?
Yeah, tough question. Look, the thing is that the cow for Hinduism has been very, very special, it's revered, and so is the bull. I mean, it's not really unusual. It's very deep in the Hindu psyche. I mean, if you look at, as I mentioned in some of my classes, that the Indian civilization, the Indus Valley civilization, was built on the bull. If you don't have a farmer farming for 10 other people with using his animals, then you won't have artisans, you won't have priests, you won't have sculptures, you have no civilization. So in effect, for Hinduism, at least for India, it's just like in the West. You'd be surprised that many English have a lot of trouble eating horse meat. They just can't understand. They will not eat it. Yes, and again, it's because it's the horse was the part of civilization. For India, basically, that's our. If you cannot accept that you are where you are, or we are where we are today because of the humble bull and the humble cow, then I think I find it very difficult to accept eating meat. But having said, it is true that many Hindus I know who eat meat, they don't see a difference from any other meat. I'll say Hindus, yes, but they're progressing from where they are. Let's not try. I know. I mean, I would not like it because I'm a vegan as well. But having said that, let them progress from where they are to whatever place they want to be. Kerala has got some special problems. I know there's been a huge attempt to kind of undermine Hinduism, Hindu beliefs. It's now coming up again slowly. There's a big fight. It's a very, very strong communist legacy as well. So the dynamics in Kerala are totally different. And this is all encouraged, I know, beef eating, whatever, in a way to take them away from Hinduism as a means. But having said that, I don't want to judge anybody on what they eat. But obviously, it's always better to be a vegetarian, move from any kind of meat and move forward to show reverence for life because they do feel pain. That's a fact, yes. And then move forward in that kind of manner. Yeah, Sitaben.
Yeah, it's very difficult because we can't sort of define somebody by their religion, by what they eat. The Hinduism is much broader than that. But then again, there is this idea of, the sanctity of the cow, the sanctity of all life, essentially. So as Vijay was saying, it's very important that we sort of try and sort of emphasize the sanctity of animal life and try and move away from the idea of eating meat altogether, because that's very much in alignment with the idea that everything is divine, everything is essentially spirit. So why not try and protect life and not harm and hurt other living things by becoming vegetarian? I mean, even being vegetarian, like, or vegan, you are still sort of harming life, because plant life is also life. But it's the unfortunate sort of curse that that we have to sort of continue living on some kind of life, but we might as well try and focus on living on things which don't feel the pain as much as an animal would, say, for example. So it's a very, very difficult sort of situation, but we have to do the best we can to support life and prevent harm.
So that's been a great session so far. We're 36 minutes in, and we are having a great, spread of all the questions. So if you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube, please feel free to carry on posting your comments, your questions, etc. And we'll pick them up and bring them here for answering live. Now, if you would like to submit your questions in advance, then there is one way to do it. And the way to do it is simply you go to our website, and I will share that with you. If you go to our website, which is hindu-academy.com, you will find this new section here where you've got a QR code that you can scan. Simply go here and scan this, and you will be taken to a page where you can submit your question via video in advance. So today we do have one question from a viewer that's been submitted, and let me just share that question for the team to answer.
Good morning, sir. The question which I have in my mind is relating to the sun. He is believed to be the son of Kashyapa. So the question here is, while at the time of Kashyapa, whether the sun is available, or is Kashyapa belongs to the earth or not, is a question. Hope he will try to clear it. Thank you, sir.
So logic, or basically my mind, tells me that before the sun, there was nothing, the planets didn't exist. This assumption is that there used to be something existing and people around before the sun basically came about. So that's the story. So I'm going to pass this back to the team to explore and help answer this question that was posted by the viewer.
Okay, so I think the thing is, one thing to remember is that if you look at the ancients, look at the, the Vedanta philosophies we have, it is true that the sun is part and part of the kalpas, creations. And if you look at all the acharyas, at the time of creation is destroyed, everything goes into a steady kind of state, which is a Sankuchi state, and it just stays in that state. The next cycle happens, everything comes in again a different sun, different everything, yes? So I think we have realized that per creation, there is the sun. In every creation, every cycle, there will be some sort of a sun as well, or whatever we have, right? So the thing is, remember that for this kalpa, the sun, as Surya Dev we have, is for this kalpa. That's the key thing to remember. So it doesn't matter how you compare which gods or whatever. The fact remains that the idea of the cycle of life we have, cycle of universe we have, it goes in cycles. It goes down, comes again, everything is created again. And whatever souls we have in whatever state, whatever karmas have accumulated from the past kalpa, from that point they start again and they continue. Well, that's what the philosophers say, right? But of course, scientific view is that it is just seen as as coming up with a big bang of the creation. But having said that, look, if somebody is worshiping the sun or revering the sun, it makes a lot of sense, because I can prove that the sun gives me life. You can't prove that any god you have, any scripture god, you cannot actually prove that he gives you life. If somebody asks you physical proof, the sun does. And that's why Hindus have always revered the sun. And Surya Namaskar is one way of thanking the sun for giving us life. That's all I can add. I mean, yeah, can't add more than that on that. Sita Ben?
No, I think you've covered it amazingly. There's not much more I can really add. Well, Hinduism does believe in the cyclical nature of time. There's creation, preservation, destruction. And in this particular cycle, the sun plays a key role in, life and the generation of life. So we have to respect it and revere it and not look directly at it. Otherwise, we can damage our eyes.
Wonderful. So we have a question from our friend Paul Elliott, who is a regular viewer on the channel. And Paul's question is, when a 3-year-old remembers his past life, as this has been discussed before, that we do believe in past life regression and so on. But what is the physical mechanism through which this information travels, regardless of time and space?
Ooh. Okay, I can have a go. Yeah, I think this, by the way, I would urge again to watch a lot of J. Bhatt Reincarnation. They explain this kind of phenomena. But the thing is that when you go to a new life from one life, whatever desires you have, whatever ambitions will be actually preserved, the characters will be preserved and passed on the next life. The thing is that they actually always are fully there. At the time when you're born, they're fully there. But the pain you suffer when you're doing birth, but you actually try and forget that. Because we all have that apparently, yes. It's not that it comes, it's always in you. It's part and parcel of the Jiva Atman. Don't forget, the Atman is different from Jiva Atman. The Jiva Atman is the embodied Atman. Atman covers the characters. That's what moves on from life to life. The day you escape the cycle of samsara, then karma, nothing, you pass, you kind of transcend the law of karma, you transcend the samsara, then you achieve moksha. But before that state, your Jiva Atman travel from body to body, it'll carry part of the characters with you. Now the thing is, in the next life when you're born, you actually want to forget, because if you remember, it's tremendously painful to remember the past life with you. So actually, as you grow old, you want to try and forget that. And the thing is, luckily, your family, the material world around will try and help you forget that. But when you're young, you're trying to remember more of this because you actually carry this baggage with you, yes? So some things you will never know. Some of the characters you have, which you built in from the past life, your compassion or your anger or what kind of level of progress you've made, those will come subtly through your life. But some of the very basic physical, visual facts, remember, will be there, but you try and forget them, to try and drop that off so you don't, otherwise it's very painful for us, yeah? But please watch videos on J. Bhatt, way we go in tremendous detail on this idea. Sita Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no sort of physical mechanism because it's not a physical thing, it's a metaphysical thing. So essentially when somebody passes away, their Jivatman sort of, I guess, wanders around and then tries to enter another body and start a new life. And all of the sort of characteristics that we've built up in our previous life and previous lives even comes with us into our next life. And that's possibly why, even children who have got the same genes, brother and sister or twins, they are born with sometimes very, very different characteristics. And you wonder, it can't surely be the genes. It's not transmitted through the genes. It's something metaphysical that we can't even sort of, trace or track in that particular sense. It's not a physical, empirical thing to measure. But what we can measure is the things like what Professor Ian Stevenson did, is that you can actually see what three-year-olds come out with when they sort of start talking about a new life a previous life spontaneously. And you can go back and check those facts and see that actually there is a huge link between one life and another. And because it's a metaphysical thing rather than a physical thing, I don't think we can ever really know how that process works. But there is definitely some kind of interlinkages between lives.
We can take at best a shot at guessing, but nobody knows the answer for sure, I suppose. We have one question from a viewer on YouTube. This is Shreya Sharma, and she's saying that what if I am not following certain rituals, so she doesn't do puja and things like that, but she leads a straightforward, good and happy lifestyle. She helps others, feeding the poor, helping the needy, and is that enough to make spiritual progress in today's world?
Yes, definitely. That's what we've been saying this whole time, is that essentially, yes, it's nice to do rituals and puja and worship, But if that's not the path for you, that doesn't make you any less of a Hindu by any means. It's really what you sort of do to serve the community, support the, wider community. It's very, very important. Actually, it's probably more important in that sense to serve the living God rather than a God in your temple in your home. So in that sense, yes, you're more Hindu than any of us, really. Vijay bhai?
I think Sita, you've covered it. There's no need to do puja as such. But the only thing I would say about puja, the benefit of puja and some of the rituals is a kind of a constant reminder of God. But if you see the living, if you see the God in the living human, in the living human being, then as Sita said, even better. Yeah.
Nishit bhai, are you asking question?
Over to you again, Manish bhai. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll just answer some questions on YouTube.
Okay, we'll do a quick few questions, short answers, please. Prasant Tripathi is asking, what is the Hindu perspective on gambling and betting? Vijay bhai?
Okay, gambling betting is not nice for you because it doesn't allow you to, impedes your spiritual progress. So, Hindus doesn't have idea of morality. You don't burn in hellfire or anything like that, but it doesn't help in your spiritual progress. So we should try and avoid that to progress spiritually. Yeah.
Okay, Sita Ben, next question for you. Shreya Sharma again saying, is said that all living beings have a soul, then is hurting pest at home bad?
It's a very tricky question because yes, all life is sacred and all of that. But we have to remember that human life is, the clearest manifestation of spirit. So anything that's going to hurt or harm a human being, you have to sort of give priority over. And my dad always used to give the example of, say, you're not well and you've got an infection in your chest and, all the bugs are having a party in your lungs. That's what he used to say. It doesn't mean you'd let them carry on. You make sure you take your antibiotics and get rid of it because your life is very sacred, more sacred than the life of those bugs and pests. So yes, we have to do what we can to protect human life and then animal life and then other life after that. It's just an unfortunate sort of circumstance that we have to tread on other life in order to live ourselves.
Interesting. Next question from Charmaine on similar topic. She's saying, my friend went from vegetarian to vegan. She's losing hair and has developed skin issues. Her dietitian and dermatologist told her to eat some animal protein again. And Charmaine's vegetarian and can't comment. What are your thoughts, Vijay bhai?
Okay, tricky question. I mean, I'm a vegan for the last 5-6 years, and I'm doing perfectly well. I've done just, my wife is like, do blood tests, and I've done it. And everything is normal. All the ions, everything for some reason are balanced, so thank God. But I would say to Charmaine, can you also go some of the vegan kind of societies, talk to them and meet them? Because I believe that they have a lot of alternatives. But yes, if worse comes to worse, then as Sita said, try and preserve your life and try and sustain yourself. And eat what you need to eat to have a healthy living, a healthy body. That's very important. It's not nice. Otherwise, it's seen as kind of fatalistic. Don't do that. But please go to all these vegetarian groups, say vegan societies and vegan groups. And I know they have really good advice on what supplements you can have, protein supplements, which are actually as good as animal kind of protein. And try and get some advice on that. That's all I can say on that question. Yeah.
Amazing. So we have one very interesting question, and we've seen some a spike in the activity in the YouTube comments around this question. The question is from Chiranjeev Das. And so his question is, does God exist? And is there evidence of God? So now I know that I don't see gravity, but it's there regardless of whether I believe it or not. But I'd like the team to answer this. And there's a lot of comments on YouTube, so I hope you guys can satisfy the requirements.
Okay, look, the thing is, let's look at the earliest experiences of people from Indic faith, which is the Upanishads. The idea is that the earliest rishis like Kapil Muni have divided the life into the idea of universal Purushaya, which is the true spirit, the Atman, whatever. And then you have the Prakriti, which is the creation. Prakriti means from 3 gunas, we have Rajastama, Sattva. And his gunas kind of manifest. And don't forget, anything linked to time and space and causation are part of Prakriti, which is your intelligence, mind, buddhi, senses, they're all part of matter, creation. Your Atma has to transcend this because you have to exist after the world ends, and you must have existed before the world was created. This is the kind of the key distinction. So having said that, the earliest beliefs of humans was seeing universal spirit, Brahman. There was no idea of, say, the idea of manifest God, like Vishnu, Shiva, whatever. Even Shiva today, a lot of Shiva sees Shiva as actually universal, ultimate reality of spirit. So in effect, is God, we already really asked, is God a principle or a personality? Then as per scriptural authority, God is indeed a principle. But hey, we all have difficulty. We're not that clever. Our senses limit us. We can't really attach the principle. So you manifest the principle into a form of, in a finite form as God, and you worship them in that sense. But ultimately, God has to be a principle. What we can debate is whether this principle exists or not. That's a different question altogether. But ultimately, the idea of the universal principle is a far, far philosophically more satisfying answer. Yeah, Sita Ben.
Yeah, I think the only way that you can really answer that question is if you actually have that spiritual experience for yourself. That's the only way you'll actually truly know whether God exists, or if it's just a figment of our imagination, or if it's just wishful thinking. Because that, I mean, people are entitled to think that until they actually experience it for themselves. I mean, we sort of read the teachings of all these mystics and saints throughout the ages, but ultimately, I mean, they're there to guide us, but we can only ever know until we actually get there ourselves, whether God exists. And again, it depends on your particular stance, where you are coming from, whether you'd like to think of God as a principle or as a personality, as Vijay was saying. But ultimately, we'll hopefully all get there and find out for ourselves.
Manish, back to you.
Thank you, Nishit Bhai. We got an interesting question from Ramendra Mahato. I'll add a bit of story to it. So we see Valmiki. He was a highway robber, and he was robbing and killing people. And then he became a sage. And similar story we saw in Jaisal Toral case, where Jaisal was a bandit who was killing people and looting. And he became a devotee as well. So Ramendra Mahato is asking, how can a sinner get salvation from his sin or consciousness of sin? Vijay Bhai?
Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's a very good question. One thing, there's a big difference here how we see sin in Hinduism or Indic faith and how we sin in the Abrahamic faith. First of all, look, what sin does or immorality does to you, it actually is not good because it impedes your spiritual progress. Don't forget, it's not like you burn in hellfire forever because you follow a particular idea. And the thing is that some people, after committing all these crimes, they see their true nature and they say, look, I know who I am. What I have done is wrong. But the progress they make spiritually, for whatever reason, where they get spark or they see something, they see the light, then they will achieve moksha. If you commit any of these sins and if you're stuck in that kind of idea and you don't progress from that, then you're just stuck in life of samsara and you keep on passing all the bad characters and you just survive until you escape the samsara. So in this, how can sinner get salvation? Is because they have got a good influence or something they've done, something even very small in the past karmas, some good deed, almost comes to fruition and they realize, oh, actually, I should not be doing this. I should progress. In the case of Jaisal Toral, I know, I think Jaisal was saved like that in that case. So that's very special like that. Or in the case of Valmiki, suddenly he realized what he's doing is wrong and he said, no, I want to be a sage. And that's quite normal in Hinduism. We see that all over the place, so many stories like that. And that's how it is. So it's okay. That's what I'm saying. Don't ever point fingers at sinners for any kind of sin they do or immoral sins they do. You have to be very careful because you're actually kind of putting your own ego forward by saying that in the first place. So yeah, it's possible for sinners to progress spiritually. There's nothing wrong in that. Yeah. Sita?
Yeah, I mean, I think even sort of categorizing people as sinners and not sinners is something that we can't really do because human nature is just such a complex thing. All of us do things that are probably mistakes and wrong, and all of us do things which are good as well. So it's very difficult to categorize people as sinners and not sinners. All of us sort of take our own sort of scenic route or straightforward routes towards, finding enlightenment, essentially. The wonderful thing about Hinduism is that, we say that we are all divine, we are all spiritual beings on this material journey, and we all take very different routes, some, involving not good things, some involve good things. So we'll all get there eventually. And sort of these stories illustrate that we are all essentially spiritual beings. And regardless of what we've done, we will get there at some point.
Wonderful answer there, Sitaben. So staying on that theme, Jay Bhai made a video on Ravana is good. And he was talking about how Ravan has good qualities. And we have many viewers complaining, oh, you are, forgetting about his bad deeds. How do we respond to this, Sitaben?
Like I was just saying, we have to remember that, if you want to watch a film and all of that, the nice thing is if the villain it's a bit of a complicated sort of nature of the villain. You don't want it to be straightforward, black and white, essentially good and bad. You want there to be some complexity that makes it interesting. That's what makes a story interesting. And actually, it's a reflection of the world. It's a reflection of humanity. We are all a mixture of everything. You can't categorize people as good and bad. We are all a mixture of everything, and we all just have to remember that regardless of what we do, we are spiritual beings, and we will sort of eventually get to moksha at some point. Even Ravana eventually got to moksha as well. So that's the wonderful sort of beauty of Hinduism, is that we don't classify people as good and bad. Everyone is a mixture of everything. Vijay Bhai?
I think that's the thing. Ravan actually reflects a lot of things which happens in normal human life. Ironically, don't forget Ravan was a very big devotee of Shiva, and I believe the Tandav dance was written by him as well. So, but again, of course, he had really, as Sita said, be a mixture of things. He had his bad trait, and somehow he adored Sita, which is not a good thing to do. And eventually, Ram had to basically take his life, yet give him moksha at the same time. So yes, life is not straightforward as it seems. Yes, and we all have all this kind of traits. So we all have to try and move away from those traits. Yeah.
Great answer there, Vijay Bhai. We take a question on this vegan question from Ellie Hibbert. She's saying, what's the team's view on using leather and wearing leather items? Sitaben?
I personally, everyone is entitled to what they want to use and wear and all of that, but I personally would try and avoid using leather, because it makes you think of all the cruelty suffered by the animals who the leather is actually produced from. And we can easily wear things which are not sort of animal products. So why not? If it involves hurting less life, why not do that? It's very difficult in this very commercial and very aggressively competitive commercial world to try and sort of say, no, you shouldn't do this and do that. Everyone is entitled to do what they like, but hopefully sort of human consciousness will keep sort of evolving to the point where everyone will start thinking, hang on, let's try and sort of preserve and protect life rather than hurting it. So any way that we can sort of avoid it, we do that in our everyday life. Vijay Bhai?
Oh yes, I agree. It's difficult, especially this day and age, to know where leather has come from. I try and wear synthetic shoes and rubber shoes, whatever. But yeah, I know, of course, you'd be surprised. Once my son asked me that, in the temple, the tabla is made of leather. I couldn't answer him. But I know in the ancient days, the chamars would actually take dead animals and the skin off and then process it and then use it, which is I'm not against. But in this day and age, you just don't know where leather is coming from. If it's come from the mass commercial slaughterhouses where animals go under tremendous suffering, then we should try and avoid that. Luckily now, if you go on the website, there's so many amazing vegan shoes that look really wow. So you have this really amazing option. So yes, I think we should try and go for that option Sita said, if you can. Yeah.
Fabulous. So that has been a great session today. We have got almost 1 hour into the session today. And I just want to remind you all that whilst we're on the topic of this, we are talking about veganism and so on. Today is also World Human Values Day. And the human values we're talking about include love, peace, truth, right conduct, and non-violence. So with that, what I'd like to do is I'd like to end the session. And as usual, I'd like to end it with a quote from Swami Vivekananda. And today's quote goes like this: you cannot believe in God until you believe in yourself. And with that, I'd like to wish you all a very nice weekend. And we look forward to catching up with you all next Saturday at 2 o'clock UK time. Bye-bye for now. And I will just bring my team back on. And we will see you next week, Saturday, 2 o'clock again. Bye-bye for now.